Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Tashina Robinson Blair.
They're lovely.
And she's our guest host this afternoon. Rogan Smith, as you know, is convalescing. She has surgery. Erica Wells, who is the first line substitute. We are having condolences for her because, as you know, her mother-in-law, my friend, Satella Cox, passed away last couple of days ago. The funeral was today, so we attended that. And so we have the second in line.
Third string.
No, you ain't third string. Mm-hmm. I don't count strings like that. You can't tell me how to do the string.
Right before the puppy.
I don't know what you're saying.
Having a puppy co-host with you.
What is she saying?
I'm a notch above it.
She just says things. She's the second substitute to Rogan Smith. Now, how are you doing, Tashina Blair Robinson?
Good.
Okay. Just as a New Year's, what do you call it? Resolution or whatever. Get rid of that. Get rid of one of those names, okay? I'm asking because I can't see you.
I thought he was gonna rap on my outfit or something. He pulled the chair on the side.
I couldn't see you. I think.
So I was thinking, okay, where he's going? Where he going now?
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.
Okay.
I suggest all those ladies who have the double names, get rid of one of the names. I am going to resort to call you only by one name, so you got to get rid of it.
Just Tashina.
No, or Mrs. Blair.
No, I prefer Miss Robinson.
Well, or Miss Robinson. However you want to deal with it is up to you, but you're getting one. Okay? I don't have the kind of time to be calling people by two names.
Yes,
okay?
call me by my full government name.
Yeah, well, that'll be Tashina Robinson. Because, that's your marriage name is Blair, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're divorced, right? Mm-hmm. You want to talk about that or no? Mm-hmm. Okay. What happened, Kendrick?
Kendrick just literally. Kendrick spit out the hot seat.
Kendrick, what happened? Kendrick, you had a situation too, eh? No, it's Osprey. Yeah.
Osprey.
Kendrick, what happened, man? Why is that fun? But you know what kills me?
Kendrick started sweating.
But you know what kills me? That the most benign thing that I might say seems to be like the biggest joke. I mean, Kendrick is like over the top.
It's funny to me.
It's funny to you?
It's like you asking the question.
Kendrick, listen, hold on. I just want to ask Kendrick something. Kendrick, why would you fanning? Come on, man. What did you, just out of interest, what
Kendrick,
specifically did you find funny about that?
The fact that you wanted to ask her if she wanted to discuss her marriage.
I just asked her. Listen, we're an open show, right? Mm-hmm. I didn't say we're going to discuss
correction.
it. I said, huh?
You're an open person. We're not. I keep telling you that, man.
But you got to open up, man.
That's all right.
That's why you're so tense. Okay? Okay. What I'm saying is, I just said very calmly,
God.
do you want to talk about that?
You're making me wish like I was videotaping this.
No. Well, for Kendrick, you sweating?
But Kendrick,
what happened, man? So I said very calmly, I think it was very calm. I wasn't laughing.
I know, but
was I laughing?
You know what's so funny?
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, the tea was literally in his mouth, and he had to
so he's sucking it through his nostrils?
No, he had to spit it back in his mouth.
Okay. But I don't understand why he's sweating, he's fanning. You must have something going on, a hormonal thing or something.
I don't know.
I just a very simple question, very basic.
Mm-hmm.
We said, we were talking about double names. I said, you were divorced. You confirmed that.
Yeah,
I said,
I'm divorced.
do you wish to talk about that? That's all I said.
Well, what do you want to talk about?
Well, see, Kendrick, she's opening. She's opening up. Was it amicable?
Is it ever?
Yeah, I think there are amicable divorces. Obviously, yours was contentious.
Very much so.
Well, I think that has to do with you, though.
No, I think
yes, I know you, and believe me,
only
he was probably a nice guy, and you messed with his head. Right now, somewhere there, he recovered walking around.
You
people say, "What happened to him?"
Be in the morning show,
I did.
And then
you
used
were very
to say
contentious.
the big Steve-O, the big Steve-O.
That's his name, Steve.
Yeah.
I never met the chap.
You always used to bring him
up
in the morning.
How did I bring him up? What was the basis?
You'd be like, oh, so that's the big Steve-O downstairs or something. Yeah, in the morning.
I don't even recall that. Hey, listen, hold on. Did I ever meet Steve-O?
No, I don't think so,
So Steve-O, you got married him when?
So the show is about me?
Yes.
Okay.
For not just a segment. It's just a segment. What year did you get married?
In 2001, in December, Christmas Eve.
It's 2001?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, this is the big test right here.
When I got divorced?
Yes, with you, because if I don't want to hear nothing like 2002.
No, and like in early part of 2015.
Oh,
Probably,
last...
recently. You
the
remember
last
we were
quarter
saying how
of a-
long it takes to
Well, no. All
progress through
right.
the
When
system?
did it fall apart? That's what I'm asking. I'm not asking
I
about
think
the
we
official-
filed like in maybe like
No,
2013.
no. When did it fall apart?
I don't know.
Okay.
I gotta go to the diaries.
You know what I'm saying, right? Mm-hmm. You know, the moment where you said, I got to get rid of the sucker. That in your mind. Do you recall that? It's very, you see, he's not
No,
even in the
because
Bahamas,
no,
right?
It's not cut and
Is
dried
Steve-O
like
in the
that.
Bahamas?
No.
So he's not even hearing this. So this is a
Trust
good way
me,
for you.
He has family members.
Yeah, but
who
this is a
hearing
good
it, and
therapy
friends.
session. This is a good therapy session for you, and I'm
So
happy
he
to
might,
do
he
that
might
for
be
you.
tuning in on the
Yeah,
internet
don't worry
now.
about him. Don't worry about
No,
him.
because then you make people more like prevalent. You make them more prominent than it is. You know what I mean?
Well, I'm not making him prominent.
Yeah,
I'm not
you
talking.
do.
No, we're not talking about Steve. We're talking about you, babe. This is about you.
You see what happens when you don't come with your script and be all professional?
I don't want to be
You
professional.
are fly by night.
No, we're going to talk about you
Okay.
for a second because
Then
we're
we're gonna
talking
talk about you next.
Fine,
Okay, good.
but guess what? I get to control that section.
I'm
I'm not in the segment. So it was. It's an interesting thing.
Okay,
'Cause,
you,
you know,
asked me a question and then I asked you
Okay.
a question. So my question will be like, who would be your top 3 celebrities to have a relations with if you could have like a cheat moment? Who would be your
isn't
top
that
3
sort of
celebrities?
isn't it sort of a kind of
No,
puerile,
go answer.
like top 3?
And then Kendrick will tell us.
Well, why is it celebrities? It could just be regular people.
No, because then if it's
You might be
regular
in the
peop-
top
then
3
if
if it
it's
was in the regular people.
then if it's regular people, I could get you in trouble.
In trouble for an imaginary thing?
Yes.
You're cracking up. This is why I always knew you were cracked up. For a long time ago.
Okay,
Remember I used to tell you that?
Kendrick, if your lady friend, if you say, "Oh, here's three real people who, if I could cheat, these are the 3 real people I can cheat
That would
with,"
cause a problem?
that wouldn't cause a problem.
Why would would it cause a problem for you? Why would it cause a problem?
Then they'll
This is
always
a
be
if.
looking. They'll always be looking at these 3
I
real
now
people.
understand.
They'll be looking at these
Kendrick.
3 real people with a bit of an eye.
Now I understand why Steve-O's not around. Okay? You see how people let you into their soul? Now I get it. Steve-O was always tense, man. He can't even turn around. Steve-O couldn't turn around. I understand. We can move on now.
He's very miserable.
What's that?
He's a miserable person.
No, I know why though. I know why. You have to have a
Because that's just
catalyst.
his spirit.
You have to have a cause of misery. And I understand why, because he was trapped. Okay? Steve-O couldn't even be watching TV and say, oh boy, she looked good. What? She looked what? Anyway, we'll move on from you, Tashina.
He's so idle.
Now, Tashina, let me ask you a question. By the way, I don't know if you're aware of this, but this is the last show of the
Oh no, I didn't know.
of the year. Kendrick wasn't aware either. I did post it, so if you are able to read, you can see it. Yeah, so I had to take a break, man. You know, it's the end of
when
the
do you come
year.
back
There's a
on?
lot of stuff going on. People aren't interested in listening to what I have to say. They got shopping and this and that to do.
When do you come back?
On the 5th,
Okay.
which is because the 2nd, which is a Monday, is a holiday.
And it has nothing to do with you not wanting to work over the holiday.
I did, yeah,
It's
of
all
course it
about
does.
people not wanting to
No.
listen to
That has
shows.
not me. No, it has with me not wanting to work on the holiday.
Okay.
But I'm just saying the reality is also, and also, there's alsos. You can have an also. They have the word. It's called also. ALSO. Also, they don't want to hear. So it's good. So it's a combo. It's a combo plate. Okay. You can get the chicken and the conch, or you can get chicken or conch. I get chicken and conch all the time. Now, so as
Do you
it
know
is.
what we need to talk about? Did you mention your father-in-law book? I had started to read it.
No, but
It
you're
was really
controlling the
interesting.
segments. I'm in control of the segments.
I'm not even checking for you.
Yeah.
It's a really
We'll talk
interesting
about that in
book,
a second.
And I'm
we'll
so
talk
happy
about
I got my son.
Time on. Now, because otherwise you could go to 4th or 5th string in a jiff. Now,
Like that.
this is the end of the year, and so there are lots of things that we could go over about what happened during the course of the year. And there's lots of things. I mean, you know, typically when people try to do these end of the year things, which I'm not going to do, they just list every damn thing in the thing. Prince died. This one, you know, things you don't even remember until someone said it. Prince died. You didn't even remember that. But the question I want to ask you is, what were the? I give you three, and they have to be quick. What were the things? I won't limit you to three.
I'm trying to think of things.
What were the things that transpired over the course of the year that you think was a big deal?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah,
I don't think there was one
I don't know.
damn thing that mattered. If you think about it, nothing that
yeah.
mattered. If you didn't have a situation, you know, the biggest thing that probably mattered in the Bahamas was Matthew.
Yeah.
Hurricane Matthew. I'll chalk that up.
Yeah.
You know, Kendrick, what
would be the
about you?
biggest
You got, what do you think? I mean, it's everything else is. If you can't just remember it off the top of your head, it didn't mean nothing to you.
Was the Loretta Butler, Andre Rogers? Why am I having a
Andre
fiber-
Rogers?
I know.
He's deceased
You know
by
Andre
about 40 years.
Rollins.
Yeah.
Was that slap this year?
I think that was like 3 years ago. I think you're.
You know why
I told
thought
you you're
about
insane.
it? Because I saw the picture in the paper with their kind of like hand around each other or like.
But
in a
even if it
friend
had
mode,
been this year,
and it was like a
would that have been something
juxtaposition.
that would have been a big deal for you?
No, it's because
Because
visually.
people slapping everyone every day. Someone getting slapped every day. Okay.
Some more than others.
Yeah. I'm going to
look
give
at
Steve-O a
you.
call because I have a feeling Steve-O got a slap or two.
This idol bad.
Kendrick, you notice she's not denying it, though. All right, we'll be back in a couple of minutes. We'll talk about what did transpire over the year. Some things transpired that, you know, maybe they were important or not. I don't know. We'll see. Fenton Nemore is our special guest this afternoon. We'll talk with him after the news break about, you know, what's going on at the big BEC from his perspective. It's all opinion. We'll be back. We're not going to talk about breasts. Okay, so move on. Now, yeah. So the question I was going to ask you is just the whole year in review thing. So this is a different angle now on year review. So why do people do that?
Because it's expected, like we were saying. In news, you have to do a year in review.
Why do you have to? Is there a punishment? Is there like a news jail if you don't do it?
No, I think it's just, it really is expected.
It's expected.
You have to wrap up, the significant stories of the year.
Yeah.
Kind of put it in perspective.
But the question I'm asking to Sheena Robinson is, if you don't do it, what happens?
Well, if you don't do it, then other stations are going to do it.
And
then so it looks like
they won't watch you. They
No,
won't.
it looks like
Come
you
January
dropped
1,
the
they'll
ball.
come January 1, they'll say, you know what? I'm not
And then
fooling
you
with you
actually
because on
do-
December 30, 31, you didn't do that review thing. I'm not watching anymore. Is that what could happen?
No, but you establish yourself as an industry leader and then you
How
have,
could you be an industry
then you
leader if everyone's
have-
doing it?
Then you have a perspective because something that was relevant and breaking in January, February, and then you look back at that in December, then it might, you know what I mean?
Let me
It's a
give you an
different
example.
perspective.
Let me give you an example. Now, I may be criticized for this, and that's fine.
But hold on, you at Atlantis as a corporation, wouldn't you do a year in review?
No. Next question, as I said.
He's lying.
So, no, okay, I'm lying. Okay, so you know how on these award shows, they have the in memoriam? Mm-hmm. Okay, let me just give you a shout out as to how I think some of these things get carried off the reins, okay? So the Academy Awards, the Grammy Awards, they always have this in memoriam. They have this nice music with the show the people. So they had this thing, a local thing. I think it's called the Icon Awards. I'll never get one of those, so I can say what I want to
probably
say.
get one.
Okay. Well, I won't. Not after what I'm about to say. So they had they obviously felt that they have to have an in memoriam. So I happened to be watching this. I didn't know any of these people in the in memoriam. They're just like throwing people at you. I think they got the Thursday obituary and they just said, let's put them in. Okay? Because why? That's what's expected.
There goes your Icon Award.
That goes. See?
Because you so scratching?
No, I'm not. No, it's
Well,
a
what
scratch.
are you doing?
It's a.
Oh,
It's
he
a
was
scratch.
See, he's too comfortable.
I can't scratch
He's too
my leg.
comfortable. Why your leg tear open and he won't scratch?
I'm not.
So
but
it's
I'm
just
not.
a distraction because
But-
no female is gonna look between your leg to see what area you're scratching in. So I just see in hand movement and your leg tear open.
You're a very, very complicated person, aren't you? Hey, Steve-O, what's happening, buddy?
I really would like to demonstrate.
I'm scratching
the
my
next
leg.
step for you is to have like a camera in here
Okay.
to do TV.
I think that there are
I think
things
the
that
audience-
you deal
Yeah.
with that you dwell on.
You need to come look and see him.
I
So
think
basically, I had to kind of look between his leg to say, "Oh, he's scratching his leg," and not something else. Could you close it up?
let me just say
Do the
something
male
here.
cross.
No, let me say something here.
Cross
no,
the
no.
male
First
style.
of all, it's not a male cross.
Yes.
It's a female cross. Men don't cross their
Yeah,
legs.
you could cross it. You could cross it like this.
Okay, that
with your
segment is over
ankle
now.
on your knee.
Officially, that segment is over. Now, I want to go back to this thing about the end of the year thing.
Mm-hmm.
So here it is, because it's the last show. I'm going to deal with an end of the year thing, but I'm dealing with it in a non-end of the year format that is a traditional thing. And I don't think I'm going to go to radio show jail or anything like that because I didn't do it that way. Okay? So I'm trying to think back in terms of what was important. You know what comes, you come to realize that, things aren't that important.
I don't know if I agree.
No, I mean, I say that, I mean, like, you think of them at the time, right? As like overwhelming.
Yeah.
But you can't even remember them now.
Right. Like after we started talking, I said, well, yeah, Bahama are not coming on stream. But that wasn't at the top of my mind when you asked me.
It's now, things have importance for different people. So if you were employed at Bahama
Right.
and you lost your job,
That would be
that's
monumental.
critical. But that would be critical if you worked at Gully's Car Wash and you lost your job. That would be a critical time for you. So it's all in perspective. And it shows you how, we can be so molded by the media and what the media does, just in terms of look at you with your whole thing,
Well, the
it's
media's
expected of you to be
the
a leader, media
function
leader.
is agenda setting. Come on, journalism 101.
No, that is not.
It is. It's an agenda setting media. We set agendas. We frame, and the way we frame or tell a story,
That's your problem right there.
it determines people's discourse.
Yeah. Here's the problem. Your job, in my view, in the journal, we're not necessarily doing. It's not journalism. We're not doing journalism now.
Right.
Journalists' jobs, in my view, is to report what is happening, not to set the agenda. That's the problem now.
But you
the
just
media
set the
does.
agenda in terms of the news that's out there, which you choose to highlight, which you choose to put on the front page as opposed to the inside or the back cover. It sets the agenda whether you want
Well,
it to
maybe
or
they're
not.
doing that. I just think that's a wrong approach. That's what I'm saying.
It's not deliberate, Ed. Everything can't go on the front.
I think it is deliberate.
No, it's
I
not.
think there's a lot of deliberation
It's just inherent.
in terms of what they determine is going to be highlighted and what isn't going to be highlighted, and even worse, how it's going to be highlighted. So we could have a discussion with that, for a million years. But the thing is, I just think we have to get it. I'm highlighting something to you, to Sheena Robinson, that one of the things that we should do for the new year, and I think the Trump situation highlighted it immensely, that we should find a way to not be herded. A guy came up to me, a young man who works over the hotel, came up to me and said, he was talking about the situation with Loretta Butler Turner and Dr. Menace. And he didn't. But when I left his discussion, by the way, so I'll preclude it by saying this. I had no idea who he supported.
Okay.
Okay. But he said to me, he just felt the need to say this to me. I don't know why. He said, listen, man, I don't know why people think that the average guy on the street needs to be told what to think. Our role is to be informed of the difference. Read the reports. We can read the reports. Take an interest in what's going on, look deeper, and make a decision based on information.
But do you think the newspaper is telling you what to think?
Well, I think that well, first of all, there's
They
newspaper.
kind of tell you what to think about in terms of the story, but they don't tell you how to think about it because you make your own meaning from the news.
I think that there's a very slim line between reporting stuff so that people can make up their own mind and reporting with a slant. I'm not pointing at any fingers and saying, but I think that it's a very fine line. Certainly what we believe to be news now, which are these opinion shows like MSNBC and Fox, they're not news.
Right.
They're definitely on one side.
Right.
And people believe that's news. And it's not.
You mean our local opinion
Well, just
shows?
people, whatever. People believe that what they're hearing. There are people who believe what we're saying is news. It's not news.
No, it's
not.
It's opinion.
Right. But people believe it's news. And it's what's even happening is that's filtering into the news. Okay? It's filtering into the news. There's a very fine line between the news and slanted news. I'm not pointing at any particular individuals or any particular stories or any particular mediums, but that's the reality. You read it, and when you just think about that, and so when you read it next time, read something next time, determine if there's a slant. Look at the headline, for instance. See what the headline tells you. Okay.
I don't necessarily.
Well, just
I think
you got a newspaper, Kendra?
But
Give me a newspaper.
Ed, headlines are written to catch your attention. Come on, you know this.
Okay.
And how much could you say in 3 to 5 words? Or 2 to 5 words?
See, now, I'm not going to read this because I don't want to think, but I'm going to ask you a question, right? Mm-hmm. This here, that's a statement from someone, right? I'm assuming this is a statement. But that doesn't appear to be a statement. There's no quotation marks around that. That's a headline. This doesn't give me the impression that someone stated this.
Well, you know what? When they do the subheads, let's use the language, when they use the subhead as someone stated it, they normally would put
That's the point I'm making.
a quote around it.
Right. So I'm saying
a partial quote
I'm
around
saying
it.
that we have to be very cautious because a lot of people now only read the headlines. Okay, so when they read that, they are going to assume that that's a position. Okay, so it's just a thing. So I'm my real resolution, and I want to harp on what I do think one of the most important things that happened in this year is, because Kendra can tell you we've been doing this 2 years now, and the one thing that I have been focused on is, in fact, when we first started the show, the slogan or the catchphrase or whatever you want to call it was transforming subjects to citizens. Okay, that was the catchphrase, and that has been my mission, is to get people to find a way to get involved, to participate in the process, to become engaged as opposed to just being herded. And that's all I will ask for people to do next year. And so that way, in that regard, the most important thing that happened this year was the We March.
Yeah, I knew you
in my
were going
view.
to say that.
Okay? And no one has to get in there and define it and say,
the
well,
fact
what
that
it
it
meant and all that.
happened, right.
Exactly.
Right. Because historically, we're people who talk and promise and say, oh, yeah, good idea, but we don't show up.
Do you know?
We don't
do you know how many
engage.
people thought that event would happen, and like
And fizzle
18 and a
out.
half people would have been there?
Right.
Okay, and the
I
reality
remember
is,
talking to people on the phone about it and just saying, well, I hope you go. You know, they were saying, oh, it's a great idea. And da-da-da. I said, well, I hope you turn out and support it. Because
Did you
we'll
go?
say it's a, no, I had to work.
oh, you had to work. Why didn't you take a vacation day?
Because I had to use vacation days for sick days and other things.
No. If you want to be a part of the solution,
But I am a
I'm
prolific.
demanding.
I'm a prolific letter to the editor, writer, caller of people who I have problems
do you
with.
wish to appear on this show again as a second string co-host?
No, I need to be first string.
Well, you're not doing a good
Make me
job of
third
that.
string.
So if you are going to be second string continually and not be downgraded, you will take a vacation and go on the next march. Okay? We'll be right back after the news. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here along with Tashina Robinson. We're going to be here with Fenton Nemore, who's due to show up any minute now. And in the meantime, we're talking with Tashina Blair. And we're talking about, what happened during the course of the year that was, dramatic. And again, we go back to this thing about the march first, and we'll talk about some other things. But when you think about the docile nature of we as Bahamians. Now, mind you,
the docile and the BS nature, because we just always promise and we don't deliver.
Well, I'm going to say we're not docile, because docile would mean we just take it, right? But I hear a lot, because I hear a lot of, there are a lot of people rowing all the time, but it seems as if they're rowing the wrong person. They're not their angst, or their what's the word I want to use? Their passion is not activated.
Right.
It's a lot, like you say, a lot of talk. I mean, this is what we do. A lot of talk, but no activation of the talk.
Right.
As you know, a couple of years ago, I started this thing called We the People. And the whole premise, if you look at the founding documents, and we spent months and months and months going over this to present the right process to people, was to actually get to where we wanted people to be activated, to where people would start at the very lowest level, which is their community. And we literally spell out examples. When you think about what affects your community, you live in the southern Bahamas area, right? Southern Nassau area, right?
Carmichael West.
Carmichael, yeah, that's southern. That's southern. Even though it's Carmichael West, it's southern. You're very, very difficult.
Keep it up.
Do I look like a Steve? Do I look Stevie?
Yeah.
Okay. The people, what we were saying to them is, look, focus on your road. What is it, a place that you go to every day when you leave work is your neighborhood.
Right.
It should be a place of solace, and you should be working as hard as you can with your other neighbors to make this a place of solace. Right. So things like garbage cans thrown on the ground, things like street signs that are on the ground, street signs, potholes in the road, unkempt verges. These are things you could do as a community.
Right, definitely.
So, and if you focus on that just as a start, then you first of all you've combined yourself. Do you know, Tashina, that when we had a tree planting exercise, so I went around to all the neighbors to invite them to a function that we were having on a street function, a street party. There was a guy who lived a house down from me that I've known for 15 to 20 years. I lived in my neighborhood for 10 years, and I didn't know he lived there.
Oh, you didn't?
That is like me knowing you since whenever, and you live 2 doors from me, and I don't know you live there.
Well, that says something about you and him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It says about us.
Well, I know my
so you know your neighbor?
neighbors. Yeah, and
What's your
I
names?
speak to them often.
You know all of them?
Yeah,
on
it's
both
in my
sides?
phone. You don't
have to say their name.
Well,
I'm just joking.
they'll
Yeah.
enjoy it.
Yeah, okay, well, say their name
So
then.
Vita and Granville Brown, and we constantly work together.
Okay.
And
It's probably
my
a
neighbors,
Carmichael West attitude. Yeah.
and Miss White to the side of me, and then, oh my goodness,
Yeah,
now
see that.
Kush, and yeah,
Okay.
their name is.
Do you know, this Christmas, someone brought up the issue of security for our neighborhood. So we did a security thing. And as a result, I went to every single person's house in my neighborhood.
Right.
Every single person. Do you know, I could literally name every single person now. And it makes me feel so good.
It does. You need to know who your neighbors are. Well, see, you saying that I need to go further through the corner and come a little bit up to the top. So I know my immediate neighbors.
Right.
So we are always constantly calling each other. If someone we don't know in the neighborhood.
You see a car.
Yeah. They'll call me. I'll call them if my neighbor's husband is working. And she says, Sheena, you hear? Because I'm more rowdier than she is.
Oh, I know that.
Yeah. So she'll say, did you hear?
No matter who they are, I know that.
Yeah, So we're always constantly communicating.
And this is where I say I identify with Steve-O. But anyway, I got to always take it back to Steve-O. Now, the point we're talking about here is about community spirit.
Right.
And we're all a collective of communities. And that's why, again, we're going to go back to this issue with Mr. Henfield and how what he's done is spark something. And I'll tell you another interesting thing that it sparked. When this thing started to come together, there's about 20, 30 organizations that signed on to this. And one of the most unique things is how they seemingly allowed their personal focus to dwindle away in favor of the bigger picture.
Right.
Because that was the risk. I mean, give you a classic example. You got a union, my good friend Obie Ferguson and Mr. John Pinder. When they roll in with support, you start wondering, okay, now listen, are they going to be trying to push their agenda, et cetera, et cetera. When you see them come in and say, you know what, okay, we're backing off for this because this is about a bigger thing, a greater cause.
That's huge.
Then there's something afoot. And then now what has happened is this has continued with focus groups and town hall meetings. So where they're streamlining their, people said, well, what are they about? And then another set of people said, oh, well, you saw that list of things. It's too many things. And now that's streamlining and having more narrow approaches to things and kind of umbrella deals, right? So it'll be, I think, 2017.
It'll be interesting to see it.
Is going to be even more of an exciting year than 2016 was, because you've got a general election coming up. You've got, you don't know how this particular movement is going to play into things. You've seen what's happened with the FNM, and you think, talk about how monumental things may seem. You realize now, with this having just happened with this historical issue or maneuver happening, that something's going to happen that's going to overshadow that.
Yeah.
You just kind of know that, right? So it's going to be an interesting time.
It's going to be interesting to see if this had momentum and how this kind of how it played. Yeah. For the 2017 general election, when that's passed and we're looking and analyzing and we can put everything in perspective, it's going to be interesting to see if this March really was a watershed moment.
Yeah.
And
of course we can't.
think it is now, but then if nothing changes, then it'll be.
Well, it's going to be up to the commitment of those who are involved.
Serious.
That's what it's going to be. The commitment. Are they truly passionate?
But it's going to be the commitment of each and every voter to kind of make a statement.
I think I've been around a little while. It's sad that I went to a funeral today, and it's I'm saying, boy, everyone's getting older, but you get a feeling that something with this one is going to stick. Now, having said that, there are tons of people out there trying different modes and different methods to try to make change. And that's all that it is people trying to affect change, right? There are genuine people who are trying to affect change. But the system is so, in the words of the big Trump, the system is so rigged that to penetrate, it's like trying to break through, a wall with a butter knife. I mean, eventually you will. If you have the commitment and did you see what's the movie called, man?
Shawshank.
Yeah. See, you immediately know that. So, but that was some soft rock, though. Okay.
Yeah.
This kind of the system we deal with is some hard rock.
That's granite.
But even with granite, if you chip at it long enough, eventually it starts to, and once you get that one crack, and then other people come and help you. They bring their butter knives or whatever, then they start to help you. But no, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But you can't ignore what just happened over the last week and a half.
No, you definitely
where you had
can't.
This move, and I've spoken to various people in the on both sides of the deal. What are you hearing on the streets? What are you hearing on the streets?
I don't know. People what I'm hearing, people are very disillusioned and people are tired of the same old. But again, people say a vote for a third party is a wasted vote, and then some people see the third parties as a means of change. Then some people, but I mean, overwhelmingly, people don't want to maintain the status quo, is what I'm hearing. But who knows? Because then that still would be a certain social circle. You understand what I'm saying? That might just be that middle class that's saying that, because I'm still talking within my
you bring up an interesting point. And by the way, our guest is on the way. He's in the East Bay area, so we'll be here for a while. But you bring up an interesting thing, and that is how, and we'll talk about it on the other side, how detached people are. That they believe they're doing something that others are buying into, but in reality they were attached. We saw it with the Hillary Clinton mode. Donald Trump was going to these little small towns where he was getting to the people. Hillary Clinton was going to the big cities, but detached from the rest of the population. Anyway, we'll be back and we'll talk about it. Well, our guest this afternoon is going to be Mr. Fenton Nimore, who is a former Minister of State for Public Utilities, and he got delayed on unforeseen circumstances, so we'll have to bear with it. He's about 10 minutes away in the Village Road area, so we'll get about a half hour out of him. But Tashina, it gives us a chance to reflect on some things. So the word on the street, I'm hearing mixed feelings. Okay, and I'm going to be very cautious. One of the things I do, and people can chide me for it if they wish to find. I am not here to promote any side.
Right.
Okay, I may have a side. We all have sides, but I feel that I do more justice to the show. And that's and again, I don't want to digress, but it's about the promotion of the show, not the promotion of me, the promotion of the purpose of the show, which is to, have people think. Like my good friend over at the hotel who pulled me aside, let people digest the situation and come up with ideas for themselves. But you're hearing a lot of things like
anti-establishment,
trust. Of course, that's on one side. The other thing you're hearing is on the other side, lack of leadership. But, how I try to parse through this is I think that I have to draw attention to the issue of process. Okay? I have a very, very guttural feeling that if you agree to a process, that you must be willing to overcome whatever it is to show loyalty to that process. So we had a situation where twice there were duly held elections. I guess I could use the words of Mr. Frank Watson, who was here earlier. And he stated that he did not feel that the current leader was the person of his choice. But once the process happened, that was therefore his leader, and they had to do what they had to do to promote the situation.
Right. But again, it happened. So obviously the people who are involved in the organization, their affinity for process is not going to be what your affinity is or his affinity. Y'all might love process, but they're saying sometimes you got to take advantage of the opportunity.
But see, what I actually, but
create an opportunity.
Yeah. But you see, this is where I think the scales may tip, because believe it or not, I think most people feel for the process in an orderly. You see, this is where it can't be a double standard, right? In an orderly society, in a society where you wish there to be order.
Right.
You who want to promote order, those of us who want to promote order, cannot be seen as going against a promotion of order. Now, if I don't agree with the system, what I do is I step aside.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I say, well, okay, I'm not.
But how then do you create change from outside of the system?
Well, you can do it, but you
It's
can't.
ever more difficult.
But you can't lay claim to the system. Well, listen. Let me
See, the
hold on,
thing
let me
is,
throw this other. Let me throw this
The way
other.
you decide to do it might come
Yeah.
back and bite you in your butt.
Well, let me throw a pro what they did scenario. So people overthrow things.
Right.
Sometimes things need to be overthrown.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sometimes things need to be overthrown. That's why they have revolutions.
Mm-hmm.
When there's injustice, right? When there's
Mm-hmm.
injustice, when there's oppression, then you may have to rise to the point where something has to be overthrown. The question is now, I think the objective of a political party is to overthrow another political party.
Mm-hmm.
And so the question has to arise as to, was there injustice internally that required something to be overthrown?
But we don't know.
No, well, we can look at the face of it. Was there an injustice? I mean, the reality is there was due process, okay, based on rules. That process was carried out, and someone emerged. Now, the fact that you felt, and again, I'm not, these are just points to make and to observe. The fact that you felt the need to overthrow that process. And this is what people, I'm sure you've heard it, this is what people have been asking. What was the basis for that?
Mm-hmm.
And have we heard a reason or a plan? I mean, we've heard leadership was the reason.
Right.
But, the process said, well, this is who we voted for.
But we're going to see just how this plays out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, forget about the playing out. I'm talking about now the action.
Right.
And here's where I think
But
people.
the reason was that the leadership couldn't inspire the people.
Yeah, but your boy coming, you want to take over the rail seat? You want? You got to.
I think Michael
Yeah, man, you taking over Kendrick's seat, man.
well, the two big mouth fellas.
But pull this over here for me, man. So it's just a matter of whether or not. I think what is happening, how this is my prediction, that probably the vast majority of people, and maybe this is on both sides of the political divide, are uncomfortable with the action.
I don't know.
That people are uncomfortable with how, based on how we have conducted ourselves historically. This is my opinion. I think that people are not comfortable with that move.
I think people are craving new and upsets. I think people, for good or for bad.
You're going to find that out soon.
I think they want anything that's anti-establishment, anything that's not the norm. I think that is what they're feeling right now. Mm-hmm. That's what I think.
Well, I'll leave you with this
know.
note. Before we take a little break to introduce our guests, I'll leave you with this note. I think that many people feel that the problem is that those who may have taken this move are establishment. So that's another another issue to deal with, okay? So, and that the establishment just simply didn't wish to let go. And again, these are all just observational points.
Yeah.
We'll be back. Our guest is Fenton Nemore. He made it in, and we'll be right back. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Ed Fields here, along with Tashina Robinson, the argumentative one, and the rowdiest one in her neighborhood, according to her. We also have as our special guest, Mr. Fenton. You're still an honorable. You see, that's the thing. They get that. The Honorable Fenton Nemore. It's funny, isn't it? You gotta laugh. It's when you take it, when you peel it away, it's just hilarious. But anyway, the Honorable Fenton Nemore. By the way, the voice of Cool 96. I thought we'd reveal that as well.
Cool 96.
There you
More
go.
Music,
Did you know that?
stress.
Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
You're here to learn. Did you know? You knew that?
And I am a voice person.
Yeah.
It's not
So,
different.
but you hear Fenton's voice. You could not pass and let him do something. He's like the James Earl Jones or Morgan Freeman of the Bahamas, So, Fenton, how you doing, man?
Oh, I'm doing well. Excellent. Compliments of the season to you and to the Bahamas.
Of course. Let's get that out of the way. So let's get this question out of the way, because this was the question on the Facebook page that someone asked that you did not see. And that is, because we're going to talk about energy this is one of your fortes, energy and energy reform. Okay. By the way, man, you look like you lose some weight, man.
Yeah, after 2012, I went on a fitness exercise with myself and my wife. And,
Right.
I lost 35 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. You lose that much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
35 pounds, and I've been keeping it down for the last 2 years.
Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. I'll talk to you about that later. So anyway, so
I'll give you some advice.
yeah. So one of the questions that people put is Fenton Nemore was in the seat. He was in public utilities, environmental health. He was in cabinet. Why, with all the advice you're going to give us in the next 15 to 20, 30 minutes, why was this stuff not implemented?
We did implement things, a number of things we did. The unfortunate thing is sometimes, you could speak and you could speak loudly, but if people are not listening, they don't hear. The first thing that I recognize as a politician and as an elected official is that many times those who enter government do not do research. And they all assume in the beginning that the guy before them was dumb. And so what we began to do first was to analyze what were the issues, particularly in the energy sector. And we brought in individuals to advise us. We first began with the National Energy Policy, which is the framework for what we have done and began. We had to formulate that. The previous administration had tried it and it failed. What we recognized was that we needed the private sector involvement. So we put together an energy policy, which began to bring about change. That's why we began with the light bulb program, because we had recognized that those who were affected most by BEC, who were disconnected, the average light bill was approximately $160 a month, which is very low. Essentially, they were the low-income individuals, and that the highest consumption within their home were light bulbs. So that is where we began, and we started a educational program, which is where, if you review anything in regards to energy reform, you have to have an educational program.
But you see, I'm here not to let you get away with the wonderful little nice sounding answers. And by the way, I was around when you were handing out the bulbs and all that. We talked about it. But the question I want to ask you is this: so you were there for 5 years or whatever.
Now you want to get to why the light turning off? That's what you want to get to?
No, not to that. That's again, I've used this word probably 3 times in the show. Puerile in the sense that we know why the light turned off. The question is, while you were doing that, what I would call a Band-Aid-ish type mode with the light bulbs,
No, I
etc.
wouldn't say that.
Well, I say it because obviously it affects people's rate. People are
No,
concerned
that's
about
one of
rate.
the things. You didn't allow me to finish with
Okay,
all the other
okay,
issues.
okay.
The first thing, the other issue with BEC was that it was broke. And BEC at the time that we took over, when I took over, BEC had an arrears bill, just the arrears now of their fuel bill was $70 million. I had, within the first 6 months of coming to office, I was told by the fuel company, if you don't deliver the check, the Bahamas is cut off. We had to find $70 million immediately in order for the lights to stay on. BEC was so broke that people were not accepting even their purchase orders, their local purchase orders. BEC, when I came to office, could not get a loan. And that is why the first thing we had to do was go to the House of Assembly and agree for the government to back $250 million loan for them. So these are some of the challenges we had to overcome before we begin to even work on BEC.
All right. Well, and this is what people want to hear. I mean, I'm asking you the question, so you're answering the question.
The other, what is even worse, Ed, is if BEC could not get a loan, how could you purchase equipment? When I came there, BEC was losing $25 million a year. What I recognized, first of all, and again, you had to look at the organization and where their expenses were. We recognized that of that $25 million, virtually all of it was from the Family Islands. And the 2 largest loss areas were Abaco and Eleuthera. And that is why we built the new plants, which were far more fuel efficient than the plants they had previously. We were losing approximately $7 million a year in Abaco and approximately $7 million a year in Eleuthera. And by getting those new facilities, we were able to reduce the losses at BEC, and that's why when we left office, they were breaking even. If you check the audited accounts. And so what we had to do was stabilize BEC financially. And that is why we then began to purchase out of pocket the last generator that was bought for BEC, which was 5 years ago.
Would again a question? Would it have been a good strategic move to earlier on bring a private sector investor into the process? I mean, I have no idea what the paradigm would have been or what the model would have been, et cetera. But if you're broke, I mean, you got a broke company, right?
Yes.
You got to do all these things that you're talking about. Was there an appetite from the private sector to come in and invest in BEC?
There was no great appetite because BEC was broke. And everyone recognized that it needed hundreds of $millions to invest in BEC. We did begin discussions, and I announced that while in office. We had discussions with Emera, which is the same company that bought Grand Bahama Power, which is now running Grand Bahama Power. And Emera is the one who put together the business plan for us, for BEC, which we began to follow. And that is why I've been critical of this government. Why did we pay $1 million for a business plan that we already have, that we got free of charge from Emera? And that same basic business plan is what is being followed.
Right. Now, let's talk about, because there's a disconnect. Again, we have, it's so difficult because you have this kind of conflation of frustration and anger and reality, okay? And when you're trying to explain something to people who are angry, it doesn't come out.
And it's very difficult.
It doesn't. It don't fly, right?
And the thing is, Ed, is many of the things that I am saying today, I did say when I was in office.
Right.
And that's why I make the comment that sometimes you say things and people are not listening. One of the things that was expressed, particularly when we had a rate increase at BEC in, I think it was 2010, we had town meetings to explain some of the challenges at BEC, but people never came out at that particular time to address these issues so that they have an understanding that this issue at BEC in particular is a massive one.
Let me ask you a question. So this is even more of an interesting question. So, and anything I say that is incorrect, correct me. Just jump in and correct me. So, 2 years ago, roughly, the rate at BEC was around about 40 cents. Okay, and a lot of that had to do with surcharges. Okay. Yes. The rate has dropped, I can tell you in real terms.
The fuel charge has dropped.
Fuel charge, but
not
that's
the rate.
Not the rate, but the cost to me. Yes. Based on fuel charges, et cetera. Because no one gives a damn about which side it is. They only want to, this is what I pay it, okay? So the rate has gone down. The rate I pay, the bill I pay, has gone down to about 24 cents combined between the surcharge and whatever, which is a, substantial drop, okay? But yet, the appetite, because I know now at some point the rate was reduced dramatically, which impacted, I understand, the financial capacity for BEC to be viable, and so now there is a need, from what I understand, for the rate to be marginally increased, so that they could be in a more viable situation to purchase equipment, et cetera, et cetera. Why is the public just not understanding of that you've gone from here to down here and you want to go back up here just a little bit, and that's unacceptable?
Well, what had happened essentially is in 2003, against the advice of all of the international institutions, including the banks who were loaning money to BEC, was not to reduce the rates at BEC.
This is the demand rate?
No, the basic fuel rate. There are two charges on your bill.
One
is for fuel, and one is the base rate.
The base rate.
And the base rate was reduced. That's a rate that stays the same. Right. The fuel charge, we changed it so now that the fuel charge are all costs associated with fuel, which we do not control. That is what was reduced over the last couple of years.
A reduction in oil prices.
In oil over the world. Yeah. But the base rate at BEC has in fact increased in the last 4 years because we've now added VAT. Now that base rate was increased in 2010 back to where it was back in 1987. to where it was at 87. And so we are basically operating BEC at a cost that existed almost 25 years ago.
And that's not viable.
And it is not viable for BEC with the equipment it currently has and with its structure.
So let me ask you a question, because I'm assuming I know this, but I want to hear someone else say it more clearly. If the base rate is, say, just let's invent something, 10 cents, and you paying VAT on that, right? Now the reality is that 7.5% of that 10 cents is not going to BEC; that's going to the central government.
Well, no.
It's VAT. I'm talking about the VAT.
Yes.
So would BEC, and I don't know how much you know about government finances. I don't know. I'm not studying this stuff. But would it be more viable not to charge VAT, leave the rate at what it is, let BEC keep that 7.5% or whatever is now being charged on VAT? Because at the end of the day, the government has ended up having to subsidize this thing anyway, this entity anyway.
Ed, let's be real and be honest with this VAT thing. The reason VAT is applied to utilities is because it is probably the most efficient form of collection of a tax. That's
So
why
BEC? But BEC isn't a
no.
receivables.
The government is looking at collection of a tax. And the utilities are an efficient form. If you do not pay that VAT, your light is turned off. If you do not pay the VAT on your water is turned off. And so the gas, the utility, BEC, water and sewage, the fuel companies are more efficient at collecting that tax.
I get that.
No, everybody else doesn't get it.
All right. But what I'm saying is, if the companies here's what I'm talking about, a strictly number thing, not the reason why you're charging VAT. I'm talking about, can the government get rid of...
the reason why the government doesn't want to remove it.
I understand that, because they want the revenue, and that's an efficient way of collecting it. But I'm saying that in terms of the amount of money the government is getting from VAT on fuel or on energy, can the government forego that revenue, allow BEC to keep that revenue? Okay, because BEC still has the power to turn off your light if you don't pay it. And that makes BEC more viable, because at the end of the day, if
let's explain it in a more simple way.
Okay.
And essentially, you're saying remove VAT from your light bill, but give BEC a 7.5% increase in rate.
You're paying it. Essentially, don't. And the reality
and that is a governmental decision,
right? And the thing
that can be made,
right? And here's the beautiful part about this, and it's just simply A plus B, right? Is this? If BEC is not viable, who pays? The government. The government has to subsidize them.
Yes, Ed.
Right? So why take the money out that you have to put back in?
But the government isn't. But the government is not subsidizing.
Extra money.
Well, they don't have the money.
But the government is not subsidizing BEC.
Okay.
That is what you haven't told the people.
Okay.
Now, maybe you're suggesting that maybe the government needs to subsidize BEC like they do to water and sewage.
And they used to subsidize.
Yeah, but we're trying to get away from that.
Right. So rather than to subsidize and get away from it, let them have their rate, let them run their business.
And remove VAT.
Let them run the business at the same rate.
That is fine. Then the government is faced with another thing.
What's that?
It has a lower revenue. And therefore, the government is going to seek that collection from another area. Now, Ed,
it's numbers.
Yes, it's numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the people are paying.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever formula you put it in, whether you remove VAT from them, the people are going to pay.
But let me throw this out to you, Mr. Nemore, because again, we're all not trying to be prescribers of right and wrong, but we're trying to figure out ways to do the thing correctly, right? Energy.
This issue is not as simple as people make it out to be.
We know that. But energy, as you know, Mr. Nemore, you've said it on this show many times, is probably one of the most important pillars of an economy.
And it's probably one of your largest expenses to a household.
Correct. To the household. So if at the end of the day, and to business, right? Mm-hmm. So if at the end of the day, we're probably past this paradigm now, but everyone in this country, almost everyone in this country who's in business, has expended huge amounts of money to create reliability by having generators and having to buy diesel and having to.
Ed,
If that goes away, doesn't that solve?
Ed, let's go back 1 second, just for a second. If you really want to look at the root cause of this issue, it is because the government, over the last 30 years,
40 years.
I use 30, and there's a reason I'm going to use 30.
Okay.
Over the last 30 years, has failed to invest in our energy assets. Do you realize, Ed, apart from the generator that we had bought when I was the minister, previous to that, the latest generator that was bought, I, Fenton Nemo, worked on when I graduated high school. I actually installed it, the Sulzer generators, 30 years ago.
I'm understanding some of this stuff.
30
They're not
years
even,
ago.
they're not even
newest
manufacturers.
ones.
Don't even
They
exist.
are the newest ones, Ed,
Yeah.
that were installed 30 years ago. They themselves are old
And
obsolete. Because we have failed to invest year after year. And when we reduced the rate at BEC was forced to they were no longer able to purchase new generators. And in addition to that, they did not have enough cash to maintain them, which has led us to this situation. So what is going to be required is our failure, that amount that we failed to invest. We're going to have
compounded now.
Is now compounded, exactly. We're going to have to invest that, and also
If you don't pay now, you can pay dearly later.
and that is what has happened.
Do you think Bahamas Power and Light management has been in managing BEC's resources?
Not effective at all. I said from they were procured. When they bought in Power Secure, I said from the beginning it's a Band-Aid issue. All they are here to do is to take the blame for the government.
Well,
Because they don't have the money and they don't have the authority on the
Autonomy,
board.
yeah.
They don't have the authority to make those hardcore decisions that are required to turn BEC around.
The question that Tashina is asking is a little loaded, and I'll tell you why. It isn't that they don't have the capacity, expert-wise. They don't have the capacity because they're being they're
They don't have
cuckolded.
authority and they don't have the
cash.
resources.
So the authority is, one, being given autonomy, and two, you get the resources by being able to raise rates. Or whatever in order to make the company
the
run.
rates are another issue. That's
Well, let me give you an
controlled by
example.
OCA.
The example I use is NAD. I was on the NAD's board, right? NAD has in its financing structure that the government could not interfere because of the financing arrangement in things like the rate increases that were scheduled over the how many every years in order to continue to make sure that operation is viable. Okay, I can guarantee that BPL don't have that kind of autonomy.
Well, it's a utility. It operates somewhat differently, but the concept I
I'm talking
agree,
about, yeah.
and that is what I was the one who seconded the bill for ERCA to open up to cover electricity and water, because I had recognized that in order for the energy sector and the utility sector to open up and to be properly managed, it had to be by an independent unit, which ERCA is more independent than the government, because politics
Right.
is not going to have as great an effect, although there still will be a political effect. That authority has not been given to Power Secure.
Right.
They don't even have the authority in the board to spend money
They
on
have to
certain
go to
items.
the board.
The government makes that decision still.
Through the board.
And so if you don't have no money, there's nothing you can really do, and you have no
We're
authority.
being promised relief in 2017 in terms of an easier summer, and that's why we're seeing.
Well, first of all,
that's why we're seeing. So
2017 is gonna be worse.
Are we being we're being sold a full stream then?
Yes,
So
2017 is going to be worse.
Okay.
And then I'm going to tell you why. First of all, to purchase a generator, it takes 6 to 12 months just to procure it after you pay for it. So you're looking at 12 months to get the generator. Then it's going to take you 6 to 7 months to install it. So you're talking 18 months from the day you pay your deposit before there's a turnaround. BEC hasn't paid a dime yet on a new generator. So all you're being is promised for something that possibly, if they act today, will affect you 2 years from
Well,
now.
let me ask you another question. And again, these are questions. We don't have the answers. We're not BC experts. We're not technical people like yourself. One of the issues, of course, was, as you stated very clearly, was the issue of maintenance. Do they have the capacity to at least enhance maintenance? One of the things, again, I'm going to use the airport as an example, was that in the first, because the airport, remember, not even a utility company, took 6 years to turn around. 6
and
years.
That's why
okay?
I'm saying the shortest period for BEC could be is 3 years.
But let me say this to you, and you're probably right, but let me say this to you. What the airport was able to do, where there were some things that they were able to do in the immediacy, and they're very silly examples. In the case, let me give you an example. Bathrooms. One of the biggest gripes of people were bathrooms and baggage claim, the baggage claim, what do you call those things? The belts, okay? So they were able to do those things to allow for a series of, or an increase in customer satisfaction, and that people could see things happening that they at least mentally had the capacity to deal with. It's a little different with BC because you like going out.
I agree with you, and I'm going to point out some things that were done that were taken away. For instance, BEC was so broke they couldn't pay to purchase generators. So we rented them. And remember, I was called a fool for renting generators.
Right. Well, they're renting them now, right?
And so they stopped the rental arrangement 2 years ago. And that's the worst summer we ever had. And so then they began to rent it again. Now, this year, what is even worse is that we were renting 40 megawatts of power, which is about 20% of what we need on a daily basis. They rented those. Those rentals were only for the summer. But last year, the equipment is in such a bad state, they needed those 40 megawatts for this winter. For the winter.
Those are still on
and they are now a permanent structure within BC. And so what happened this summer, they had to order an additional 40 megawatts. So they're now renting 80 megawatts of power. Now, we had put that method in because BEC couldn't afford to purchase.
Right.
Okay. We also put in...
Just out of interest, what is the math on continually renting those?
Right. You'll never be in the position
in a position to... Are you stabilizing, or are you going deeper into the hole?
You're going deeper into the hole by renting. But pause for 1 second. What we recognized at the same time was we needed to purchase additional generators. And what we were doing was purchasing them incrementally. We purchased one for Blue Hills, which was installed at Blue Hills at the end of my term. We were to purchase 2 other ones. We had prepared for 2 18-megawatt units. That 18 megawatt was to address Bama coming on stream, which we had expected to come on stream around 2013, around then. And then another 18 megawatts to supplement what we now have. In other words, those 2 generators would have replaced the rental units. But we had to do it as the cash came in. And that was the plan. That plan was canceled. And so they purchased none.
Okay.
No initiatives. And so we're now in a worse situation today.
To throw out the possibility of hope, and I think this is how I started to ask this question, can the enhancement of maintenance, because you said that was at an all-time low as well, can the enhancement of maintenance or the upgraded maintenance help to stabilize the situation?
Yes. They at BC, they do, and they did have capable staff. But what we did was we brought in, particularly in the winter months, you do your maintenance in the winter, like around now.
Because you have lower
because
demand.
there's a lower demand because we're not using as much air conditioning.
So you could take something
down.
So
you would take one generator down at a time, and you literally overhaul it. Just break that engine down, put in new liners, etc., and do it incrementally, and you'd be finished by February or March. What we did was we hired a European firm who would were specialized in the maintenance of these equipment to assist the BEC staff during the winter months. And so that is an area, but you have to pay them. And what has been happening at BEC, and if you go back in the press, you'll see I criticize the government. When Leslie Miller stated that they were paying $5 million for maintenance, I said that's a drop in the bucket. I then knew, and I said this from, 3.5 years ago, that we're going to have problems because they were not investing the money in maintenance. If you don't maintain your car, it's going to break down. It doesn't break down today,
No.
but it's going to break down months later.
I mean, it does. It's going to be a very difficult
And
deal.
now we're paying the price. But here is the issue, Ed, is that we're to the position now where Clifton Pier Power Site is running below 50%.
and
That
that's
is
the efficient
unacceptable.
plant. That's the one I
And
understand.
that is the plant that we seek to be the most efficient. Why? Because the fuel that it uses,
Lighter fuel?
no, it's heavier. It's the heavy fuel. It's a cheaper fuel.
Oh, cheaper fuel. Okay.
It's cheaper. But the lighter fuel is used at Blue Hills. But that is more expensive. But the reason Blue Hills is needed is because when you use a lighter fuel, it's more reliable and there's less maintenance. And so if you don't maintain Clifton Pier, the cheaper equipment will break down.
And by the way, the Clifton Pier engines are more efficient, correct?
They're more efficient.
So that means they use less fuel.
They use a cheaper fuel.
But they use a cheaper fuel, but wouldn't they use less
No,
in
the
terms
cheaper
of from
fuel.
efficiency? No?
In terms of the amount of energy created,
Yeah.
It'll be more efficient, but
Okay.
it is cheaper.
Okay. All right.
All right. It's for instance, if you use diesel for your car, the diesel is cheaper than the gasoline.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Well, at the end of the day, this is what I constantly say, and this is without any knowledge of the technical parameters, is that it's not a fixable problem overnight. Someone needs to be able to communicate to the Bahamian people what their expectation should be, and that they are able to see a process of not only dealing with what we have, but now we only have 1 minute left, but I got to ask you quickly. Alternate energy. You know, people thought all kinds of things, solar and wind and all that. What's viable?
All right, Ed. This is gonna need an entire show for.
Okay.
First of all, we've talked about the problems at BEC. We haven't talked about the solution. There's a solution at BEC, in my view. It's going to require the government to invest a lot of money. I believe that energy is at a state where it is now a national crisis. We're only seeing the tip of the iceberg if we do not address it now. What is viable for the Bahamas? We have to be a bit more creative. We have to address the issue piece. For instance, waste to energy. We cannot go out without properly analyzing what technology to use. There is a technology that we have looked at that we can quickly run into now. We have studied it because in terms of your waste, you have to study
It's
what
just a
type
fuel
of waste it
source?
is. And it is seasonal.
Right.
Yes. And we could burn that to create 20 megawatts, which is equivalent to one big
So
generator
is it- so-
at BEC.
So you use the existing generators, but you use a different fuel source.
The fuel source would be your garbage.
The garbage, right. So you don't have to change huge things overnight, but just how to convert that fuel into
You would
go into
convert
those
it.
to
Yes,
generators.
you would have a new system that would essentially burn your garbage that produces a gas,
Right.
and that gas is used to run a generator.
Right.
But do we have the money to invest in the technology?
Yes,
to
cheaper
we
than buying a new
began that
generator.
process. We began that process of going out to seeking qualified and capable individuals through a bidding process. But that process was canceled, and we didn't proceed.